The question is, I guess, with robotics as well, like in the region, it probably is still a lot cheaper to hire humans than to deploy robots.
We haven't really seen real, true AI in the field yet. The humanoids in CES, those are not in the field. The robot dogs are not AI as well, right? They're using traditional ML, algorithmic-based input-outputs.
We have the massive number of languages, and each language has its own dedicated accent. And that is a really super data set for us to train our robotic in this region and then go overseas to compete.
There's going to be a lot of stuff that was promised in 2026 that isn't getting here to 2031. And I think that's really down to like atoms.
This is the panel that I've been most excited for.
Same.
Simply because of we talked quite a bit about AI previously already, right? In terms of what's being done right now. But physical AI, in my personal belief at least, it is the real future. It's our real interaction and engagement with AI in the world. But at the same time, still very theoretical because a lot of us are still in the research phase. A lot of people don't understand what this entails. So very happy to have such wonderful and accomplished gents over here. And this one probably will be the most mysterious panel here because a lot of them do not know what you guys are doing at all. So, Ryan?
Yeah.
Let's do our first question.
Yeah, let's take the first question off, which is, okay, physical AI feels a bit far away for this region. We see a lot of things happening on the east and the west. So maybe this question is for Thor. And you've seen some of this happening. What does it really take to go from a working prototype in a lab all the way to deployment? And it's a long journey, but can you just give us a snapshot?
I don't think it's that far away. I was just downstairs in the lobby and there was a robot, running up to me.
True.
So I do think we have, kind of machines running around us. Daniel here is actively working on it. At DeepMind, we just announced kind of a new partnership with Boston Dynamics. So, we're kind of actively partnering with hardware manufacturers to, sort of bring our models to their hardware. And especially we're working on kind of the generalist models that, ideally you don't need to train to specific machines. And we're kind of seeing early success with that. So, we launched kind of the Gemini robotics models. That there's kind of different categories to it. The Gemini robotics ER, so that's kind of the embodied reasoning. You can try that out. It's in Google AI Studio. So that is really sort of, looking at the spatial and temporal understanding and sort of mapping out, understanding a task, kind of breaking it down. And then sort of generically mapping out, no matter sort of what the hardware is, to sort of map out the instructions that we need to give the robot to sort of perform that task. What does it take to make it real? I think the big problem is, now we have all these benchmarks, and the benchmarks are great. They kind of give us an idea how well our systems are performing. But, obviously the benchmarks and the digital world are kind of one thing. Once we kind of put a physical robot out in the world, there's a lot of things that can happen. And, obviously we don't want them to hurt us. And so, in parallel to these models, we're building kind of the simulation sort of experiences. You might have heard of Genie, to actually, allow the model to learn from simulations rather than in the real world, because we can't have robots just running around and breaking glasses all the time to learn. So I think that's the approach here, and obviously it takes kind of scaling that up. Genie is very limited in the amount of time it kind of can run at the moment, and so I think ultimately it comes down to scaling that up and allowing the models to learn so that they can then be safely put out into kind of the physical world.
Right. Then speaking of robots running to us, we see robots running around that belongs to Menlo quite a bit. So I guess in your journey of deployment, what's your take on this? And what is the most challenging part of the deployment journey for you from Menlo's perspective?
So I think for us, Menlo has a very different route here, right? So we started with an AI product, that one's got a few million But we actually started as a robotics company, right? We built this thing but I think when robotics is, where it's really difficult, right? It's actually the flip side to all of what the software side has done. The software is moving super fast. AI is moving super fast, right? But when you actually build a robot, where's the difficulty in it, right? So you talked about like the latency, everything. On a single robot, right, which is like a self-driving car, there are 4 cameras, right? And I think earlier during the AI agents, they said they had to change the office network just because everybody was using like a chatbot, right? So on that single SFU chip that is in the head of the robot, you're processing 4 cameras, right? That's at least 1 gigabyte per second, GBps. You're running an entire data center in this thing that is 6 foot and like sort of is like the same size as you, right? So that's a very, very, very difficult computation, hardware and electronics problem, right? And very people have solved it. If you look at Unitree and you look at all these robots dancing, they're not really processing video or voice data. How many Unitrees have you seen talking? Right? If they're talking, they're probably processing in AWS or it's a like fake demo, right? But just being able to process all of that, like not even running the AI, just getting the camera streams, pick it off the wire, and like make it, run your voice SFU and all that. That's really hard, right? And there's going to be a lot of stuff that was promised in 2026 that isn't getting here to 2031, right? And I think that's really it's down back to electronics.
Right.
It's really down to like atoms.
Right. And I guess question for Daryl, you've deployed quite a bit across different regions. What's your take on this? What do you see from your side that maybe people outside of physical AI is not seeing, whether it's challenges or opportunities?
So I think you asked a question to Thor earlier about lab to production, right?
Yep.
I would argue as well that we haven't really seen real, true AI in the field yet. I mean, the humanoids in CES, right? Those are not in the field. The robot dogs are not AI as well, right? They're using traditional ML, algorithmic-based input-outputs. And there's reasons for that. I mean, I think Daniel shared quite a lot about the data input, the lag. But maybe I'll come at it from a perspective of my industry, which is manufacturing and industrial automation. And I do believe that's where the first AI case will be. And that's why you see, Figure, Boston Dynamics, they all focus on manufacturing. Because manufacturing at least is a bit more controlled, right? A bit more deterministic. And that you're able to get some output out of it. Even with adaptive, high mix, high variable input. So for me, I think when we look at industrial AI or physical AI, I look at AI as a layer. I think we are seeing quite a lot of companies wanting to do end-to-end AI for automation. I at least for the state of AI right now, I don't think it's the way because you combine hallucination with non-determinism. It's going to like imagine you want to weld a part, you give it 2 same parts, it welds differently. I think any manufacturer here will be very angry with that. So there will be multiple different layers in the stack. But AI is really just one of the layers. Yes, it will give you adaptiveness. Yes, it will give you flexibility. But we must still understand that there is physical limitations and kinematic limitations to what physical AI is in itself as well.
And I think definitely not to leave Mr. Colin out. So physical AI, I think definitely we talk about robotics, but I think engagement with the real world, that's really what embedded AI, physical AI eventually will mean. And Agora definitely, 11 Labs, with AI previously that's on stage, a lot of them are your customers. They build on your platform. So you definitely have like a clearer view on this multimodal, and the voice is a very important part of engaging with the real world and AI. Do you think that it is at a stage where robotics is here now? Is it somewhere faster, somewhere slower? What do you think?
Actually, talking about the sensor or the camera, actually, before the CES, actually over 50% humanoid robotic from China. I spoke to almost all of them. Actually, I got one insight is that they are playing some tricks about the large language model and also the camera. But after the competition is over last year, they found out the semantic issue are all resolved, such as the ASR issue, such as the camera issue, such as intelligence, that is resolved. But the acoustic one is the hardest one because they don't know how to make the noise cancellation. The traditional noise cancellation sucks in many robotic just like many robot companies.
Is it as bad as like our regular AirPods for noise cancellation?
Yeah. Actually, the most asked question from our customers who are doing the robot is how many microphones need to put in the robot, and also where can I put that? Within the head or in the hand? That is a really difficult question to ask. I saw a lot of companies just have another microphone, such as DJI. That is really happened in currently the robot company. They put a DJI's microphone in the robot instead of the single microphone. And also another thing is cost, because everyone know there are manufacturers in China, and they're producing a good quality microphone, also the bad quality ones. But after they do some trade-off about the cost and the quality, they always choose the cheap one.
Yep.
But currently they forget. So they just switch to the high quality microphone that to resolve the real-time issue.
But in the long term, always cost first. Doesn't look very good. So it looks like from everybody's rather, I would say negative, a rather sad view, that it seems that we're still quite far away from physical AI being a very common thing that we see right now. So I think the next question then is, I mean, all of you guys also involved in the research aspect of these things. What do you think is like a realistic timeline of whatever we hope to see actually reaching our shores and doors? And I think that first facet of it is in general, globally, but I think also more importantly here for the people in the room, when do you think that will actually reach for APAC in particular? So these two questions.
I want to push back actually on that. I don't think, okay, so I've said, okay, so you need, and you know, like there's a lot of different types of robotics companies, right?
Definitely.
And Daryl and I can have like this debate here, and it's like kind of fun. We did it at Tech in Asia. Because when you talk about a robot, there's a lot of different types of robots, right? Like the robots that Daryl works with are very different from the like sort of robots that we work with, right? And like for manufacturing, that stuff is here and now,
right?
And like the banks, everything that sort of CapEx should be going into that,
for sure,
right? Because you've got this amazing opportunity where the cost of actuators is dropping. There's all this know-how, you know, like how many factories in Singapore are still like run really, really old style, right? I mean, all of them should be going to like this guy over here and like really making that like super.
Shout out Augmentus.
Right? But where it's like really sort of like we're not sure. Right? And so the second stuff is what I think Google's doing, right? Which is really this idea of embodied intelligence, right? Where you're just wearing a sort of pin, and it sort of has, it's like ChatGPT, but it sort of understands what it's seeing in front of you. That technology is here and now, and it's like going to be the main vector that people collect a lot of data to then train these robotics data next, right? So the guys who are working on smart glasses or working on AI pins, someone's going to crack it, and it's going to work, right? It's going to be either a construction helmet, it's going to be a soldier helmet or something that allows you to collect this order of magnitude more like egocentric POV data, right? The ones that are going to be 5 years from being 5 years away are like the sort of figure AIs, which unfortunately is the stuff that we are doing. Right. But it's really, I think, the real Olympics of where all of this is going. And if you're making the sort of long-term, long-range investments, like a bipedal robot that can sort of navigate human space, that can be trained on CCTV data, that's still in its like 2015 ChatGPT moment. Right. So it's going to be 5 years away from 5 years away. But if you crack that, right, the TAM is near unlimited. But you've got to take that sort of long-range bet that they pay off, and then you're going to win.
Right, so like potential high timeline varies depending on how fast this magic happens. And at the rate we're looking at AI developing over the past 2 years, might be sooner than we think.
Especially on the software front, right?
For sure.
But I think the more interesting, but thank you for pushing back, because this unlocks another question, which I think maybe we'd love to hear from Thor, is we're obviously at a certain phase now. How would you describe this phase, and what do you think the next phase would look like?
I think what we've seen kind of last year, a lot of sort of voice becoming, you know, sort of this new interface that actually becomes delightful to interact with. And, you know, we've seen this sort of 11 Labs pushing the boundaries in terms of like voice quality and, you know, machines actually being able to sound, you know, like a human. And now, with like Gemini Life, and might have heard of Project Astra and Gemini Life, sort of on your phone, right? You have this now on your phone, where actually AI is in the physical space. It's it has vision capabilities, it has real-time voice capabilities, and I think that is sort of probably this year what we're going to see a lot more of is actually using sort of our existing devices, using our voice, using vision, where actually the humans are the robots, and sort of the AI is kind of helping us understand sort of the world and helping us to perform tasks. So I think that is very much real, and that's here. And I think voice and vision agents are sort of the big thing happening this year. But then, taking that into actual kind of humanoid robots. Good question. Probably Daniel has a better idea of kind of what that timeline looks like there. And I'd love to hear from Daniel as well, kind of what he would love to see from us to sort of help him make that happen.
Need free credit, man.
Collaboration. Woo. Colin, do you agree with what Forrest says about this voice and multimodal thing? If you agree, you have to present a slightly different perspective as well, by the way. Yeah, so you can also disagree. Yeah.
Yes, actually, I have a more clear answer for this
Let's hear
timeline.
it.
After talking to several robotic company and also car company in China, I think the timeline is super fast and nearby. It will start from Q3 this year.
Okay.
And that is an insight from the customers' discussion, because all the customers are telling me that the on-premise agent is coming, because the GPU on-premise, the GPU will go beyond 200 TOPS, and small model can put into the robotic. Then they will have their own mind, and then they can have trigger their own action. So I think the timeline is super near. If you walk through the Shenzhen's market, the factory, and then you will find the answer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Daryl, do you feel that in the manufacturing space?
So I think I may give a more nuanced perspective in my role in manufacturing, right? When I look at automation jobs or technologies, I look at it in 4 key performance pillars.
Okay.
So one is precision. The second one is complexity.
Yep.
The one is ease of use, and the last one is adaptability.
Yep.
So when we talk about speed of adoption, for AI, the best thing is adaptability. It's adaptive.
Sure.
It can be adaptive, but inaccurate, but it's adaptive, right? So maybe we talk about the lens of applications that is a bit more low accuracy, a bit more less complex, but if it demands adaptability. And I think that's where the first 3 applications will be. And that's where you see Boston Dynamics and Figure also talking about loading, unloading of trucks, loading, unloading of crates. I mean, it's not very accurate. It's not very complex as well. But in my role, I do feel that we are still quite a while away, I would say, in true AI autonomy. But in terms of initial deployments, I do agree. I think we will see end of this year, we'll definitely see some.
Okay.
But whether it's AI or not, I think that's maybe. I mean, how do you define AI, right? I mean, Tesla had self-driving cars in before 2020, and ChatGPT came out when. So the definition of AI as well has to come into play here. But I guess one last point on my side is my biggest fear is actually the promise of AI, and also the timeline, because we're seeing so many companies promising brand ambitions.
Right.
You know, I think we see the recent humanoid robot being pre-ordered to be.
Oh, yes.
You know, that might kill a lot of businesses because, you know, for enterprises, there's a lot of reports coming out that 90% of AI projects are failing.
Yes.
What is that going to do for the industry?
Right.
So that's something to think about as well.
Okay. And I think latching onto that also, because we talked about eventually if the timeline is quick, end of this year we start seeing deployments. One of the things we want to focus on then about what AI is autonomous, right? And especially in the physical AI realm, world models beyond what the foundational models we see right now are super important, right? And I think one of the speakers mentioned Yan Li Kun just now, who left Meta to kind of work on his own world model-based startup. But there's also been a lot of criticism about what he's been doing, what he's been saying, which is basically that what he's saying, what he's doing that encompasses his world model actually is totally not enough for what a world model really needs in terms of the data inputs, the data collection, so on and so forth, right? So where do you guys see this kind of world model development? Do you feel that it will still catch up by end of the year for deployment? Do you feel that's something that's like super far away? For might be the best person to answer this because that's what Google DeepMind is working on right now. But you guys are at the front lines as well. Definitely, you will know what else needs to be considered for building these kind of things. So really keen to hear your opinions. Dora has to go first.
I don't think I'm the best to answer this. So maybe to give you some context, I work on the Gemini API and Google AI Studio. So it's very much very far away from the robotics and the real world. We do have some people working on it.
Yes.
Which is great. But yeah, I don't actually have a great answer for you there. I think like looking at it now, it is quite limited in terms of like the amount of memory it has. You know, how long can it remember the state of things? And so I think ultimately the sort of the big issue is kind of the infrastructure, and you know, there's only so many TPUs we have at the moment, and you know, even if you're using anti-gravity, eventually you run into limits, right? So I think ultimately it comes down to how quickly can we scale up, you know, our infrastructure to sort of handle that demand, and you know, is there kind of something else that we could be doing to sort of progress that? So again, probably asking the experts here.
We'd love to hear from Daryl. What in your work in research, how has it come along with in terms of world models?
So I want to make this a bit more fun, where we have like some disagreements.
Go
and
for
like,
it.
So
Let's do it.
It's more fun, right? Okay, so I think one of the first things, so like, you know, we have this AI thing, and so Menlo also has this other product called Gen, which is like one of the top 10 local AI things.
Yeah.
I'm making a strategic pivot to get that out of local AI because I don't dare bet on this thing when RAM prices are this high.
Right, fair.
Like it's like it's dead.
Just going
Next
up
year,
and up, yeah.
boom, dead. Unless I hope some of the Chinese manufacturers for RAM like
Miraculously,
crack
yeah.
it, right? Like, and we went up to Huaqiangpei, went up to Shenzhen, like, Tony, please give me RAM, you know? And we're really begging. We're running on DDR4, we're running on everything, right? But RAM prices have gone up 5x.
Yep.
That's it, you know? Like, how many people can buy a GPU?
Very
right?
limited,
We basically on the day RAM prices went up, we are based in Sim Lim Square.
Yep.
We bought up all the RAM in Sim Lim Square. That's it. Period. Full stop. You know, it's like a real thing. It's a real problem, and that's it, right? Okay, so I think that's going to be a lot of problems for the entire industry moving forward, given that OpenAI just bought like 40% of all RAM on planet Earth.
Almost left already, right?
He left already.
And I don't think we've seen the after effects and knock-on effects on that for the industry.
Yep.
And like robotics is just here being like, yo, guys, like, you know. That said, now I want to jump a little bit to world models, right? So world models, and if you think about the VLA models, right, which are the sort of robotic foundation models, they're interestingly very small. They're 1.5B. So you can run it on your phone.
Yep.
Right now, are they accurate? Right? Like, and that's where like there's a lot of hype right now. But if you go to Sim Lim Square, my robot just walked into like glass door, you hear this clang.
Yeah.
Right. It's really because the reliability, the hallucination problems, all that, that's not solved. They make really good demos, but can you actually consistently put this in front
in the field
of a kid?
Deployment, right?
No, you can't. It's very dangerous. Everybody's reverting back to inverse kinematics.
Yeah.
Right. And if you look at, you know, the simulations and all that, Sunday Robotics is basically doing reel to reel. They have a pair of gloves, and that maps directly to the hands. Right. So that's basically almost a white flag for simulations.
Right.
So there's a lot of stuff not working, but there's some stuff that is super promising.
Yeah.
Right. But it's really about like you've got to choose to fight the wars that you can win. Right. Everything else is like sort of like hype and all that. Right. So, but for world models, what's really interesting is actually stuff that you guys are sitting on. The Genie 2, which are next frame video prediction models. Right. If the robot can dream what's happening next, it can actually make a lot of predictions about the world. And I'm betting that that's basically the parlor trick that is similar to LLMs. You don't need to understand anything. You just need to predict what the next video frame looks like.
Actually, just consider the one model as a university for the agents or for the robots. We are collecting lots of feedbacks or requirements related to the understanding the world. Because currently, the agent thinking is based on the language base. So everything needs to be understood and written into text. If somebody talks, then it will be transcription to the text. Then the robot understands. But how about the door slamming How about the dog barking? That kind of sound is not cannot be understood, but can be described by text. Then the agent can understood.
Yep.
So that is a key things. And also, by the way, there is a book, Silent Message, is super famous in the conversation.
Yep.
And there is a sentence that in the communication, only 7% information exchange rely on the language. Others all rely on the body gesture, the
Hand
facial
gestures,
expression,
body language and stuff. Yeah.
the tones, and also the emotions. So I think the word model is a perfect university or high school for the agent or the robotic to learn something, learn the skills, and then they can do some actions in the real world. That is a key value for the word model, in my opinion. So that's
I like how you framed it in terms of like the world model being a university for the robots. But I guess this question is more for Daniel. Do you see yourself implementing this internally? When this gets a bit of traction, when this becomes more mature, do you see yourself becoming an end user of world model in hopes of increasing the rate of training?
Or maybe a more like specific question then is compared to what you guys are already training on right now, right? Which is augmentation of the manufacturing process, so on and so forth. To what scale do you feel that world models coming in would accelerate that efficiency, that process, that cost?
Yeah, so I think for me, we are very domain specific, right? In manufacturing. So we do a lot of welding, sanding, grinding. I would be honest right now, I think we don't see a lot of value right now.
Right.
But we are seeing a lot of developments in when you want some level of, when you want to deploy a new application faster, that might come into play pretty early. But for us right now, I think we use AI as part of our stack, but not end to end. So what I mean by this is that actually the robot doesn't do path planning, for example.
Okay.
That is done on a kinematical level, physical level.
Right.
Because we need hyper determinism.
Correct.
Right. If you tell a manufacturer, like what I mentioned earlier, right, you give him two parts, it welds differently. That's a huge red flag.
Yep.
And I think that's what we're going to see in my industry, my applications. You wouldn't see end-to-end AI like what you're kind of seeing for humanoids, right?
Yeah.
So it's a very different world, and we use AI in a very different way.
For sure, definitely.
But yeah, I think that's my quick answer to that.
Okay. And I think then maybe like drawing back to also what Colin previously mentioned about like that engagement with AI right now is a lot of it is language based because LLMs are trained on text, right? And that also has determined how right now I think a lot of us are engaging with AI, both at a robotics level in terms of like typing out the code specifically to tell them what to do, or even like a general user level, right? When our AI interfaces right now is to ChatGPT, right? Literally typing in the chat. How do you feel that with the inclusion of world models or even just like the scaling of what's possible right now in terms of collecting data, engaging with that, how do you feel our engagement with AI and the rest of the world will change in the future? I think there'll be a follow-up question to this later, but that's more along the lines of like, how should we then be building our products for that in the next paradigm? But I think, first question first, how do you think the future will change in terms of how we interact with AI, how we interact with the world with world models coming into play? Tough question, it's like a dreamer question, because I think if you guys know this answer actually, then it's like you'll be building that product and we will all be rich as a potential employee.
We've open source like a few models that are like that, right? So I think it's a little bit in reverse, right? Like and maybe there's just an old school AI thing. When people talk about world models, I have no idea what they mean.
Right.
Because like the classical world models mean like the JEPA style models that Yen LeCun is working on. They're very, very different from like Fei Li's like video prediction, right? So even within world models, you've got to sort of break it down into world encoder, right? And that's what I think is more interesting.
Okay.
And then, the actual outputs, whether it's autoregressive or that's a different story.
Okay, for the crowd here who might not be super familiar, could you give like a quick 30-second on each? What's the differentiation?
Okay, so I think I'm not from this world models field. So
go for it.
Actually, if someone wants to take it.
If anybody disagrees, it'll be a disagreement.
So I think the real magic of LLMs came when, if you think about from humanity's history, right? They've been around for, let's say, 2,000 years, 4,000 years since the written language, right? Let's think about it from like really civilizational perspectives as if we were like 5,000 years later, right? Humans basically spent 2,000 years inventing language. And the last 100 years was actually creating this sort of digital medium to basically collect all of our knowledge over the last 2,000 years and store it on this thing called the internet, right? And so the internet is basically like the aggregate of all human knowledge, written down in this, encoded in this way called language, which is English, Chinese, whatever.
Right.
And it's sort of stored in this thing called the internet, right? And our good friends over at Google and everybody else came up with, they realized that there was this thing called the transformer, which allowed us to sort of take all this encoded information and turn it into something which you could feed into a neural network that, you know, became these AIs that we know today. That doesn't exist for the world and physical space. Right? The closest we have to that is like LiDARs. They can sort of draw and replicate a 3D map of this, but it doesn't understand things, right? The way a human does. It doesn't understand things like, okay, this genes is soft. It doesn't understand a lot of things. And it's going to be a very, very long, but if you look at that like a kid, right? Even a 3-year-old or 2-year-old, my kid is like 2 years old. He sort of knows that if he steps off this, he's going to fall. Right? And there's this very intuitive understanding of physics that doesn't quite exist right now. And there is this intuition that the video models would allow us to sort of create that parlor trick to like understand that. Right. But it's still very, very unclear. They're expensive to run. And honestly, we're not sure.
Okay. Do you feel that, like, according to this case, the audio development that you guys see in the multimodal models, does that lend towards that particular development? Or do you feel that it's something completely separate? You feel that voice models right now, whatever 11 Labs, so on and so forth are doing, are not potentially helping out in this particular way?
Yes, I want to answer this question from a different perspective.
Go for it.
Yeah, from the product manager's perspective, also from the business perspective. I think in the future, we need to understand the relationship between human to human and human to physics or AI or virtual AI is different. Actually, yesterday I saw an interesting thread. The host is asking ChatGPT generate an image on how I treat you, and then GPT provide the output, and output is really lovely. The human is hugging the ChatGPT.
Yes, very sanitized.
Yeah, and the second question is second input is generate an image, no sugarcoating, just be honest. I can share the image for me. So it's you can see the GPT is sitting in front of the desk and all full of tasks. And I'm holding a cup full of coffee and name the work and pull it into GPT's head. So I think we need to understand the relationship between human and AI is different. So we need to treat AI better. And then we need to design actually for the to-B company, we need to design the product for AI to understand the word. I think that is a meaning for the word model. That is number one. And number two, actually for the physical AI, I think, do anyone know the most critical thing for the AI hardware company? There is one metric called product return rate. Actually, for many AI hardware, that is the killer metric because it is easily to go beyond 50%. I think a stable system is a key thing that we need to deliver our product to the consumers. So that's my opinion. So yeah.
Daryl, Thor, any opinions?
No, I think it's all good. Yeah.
Oh,
Let's,
no agreements.
Yeah, let's maybe bring the conversation back to this region because we've been talking quite broadly, globally. The purpose of this conference is to talk about APAC and the opportunities here. And this region is especially physical. If you think about it, logistics, agriculture, manufacturing. What do you think is the opportunity and the edge we have over the other regions when it comes to the physical AI space with that context and that opportunity in mind?
I think I'll be blunt, right? Because the issue about this region is that we are kind of in a race to the bottom. I think and there's the shortage of labor exists, but it's not as prevalent as in the US, Europe, developed countries.
Definitely.
So the need is not high. And secondly is also about the money. Like the money is not like VC rounds are like in the US, right? So when you combine this, that's why we're seeing so much more growth happening there. But I think where where our region has a lot of edge, especially in manufacturing, is that a lot of manufacturing is outsourced here. So what this means is that the domain knowledge,
Right.
tribal knowledge,
Right.
is baked in here significantly. And how do we capture that? I think I was just having a lunch with my peers in the space as well earlier today. And the question that keeps coming up is, how do we capture tribal knowledge?
Right.
How do we encode that, right?
Yeah, right.
And from there, how do we transform that into usable data for the robotic systems? We don't really have a clear answer, but because a lot of manufacturers don't do process documentation.
Yeah, for sure.
So how do we solve that? I think that's a different topic, but yeah, I think the thing here is really about we're doing a lot of real manufacturing here because it's been outsourced here significantly
Right.
as well. So that's the edge, right? That's where the data lives. Yeah.
It's a trade craft, basically, right? Yeah.
Anyone else has a take on this? What is APAC's edge in this space? Or are we going to be a follower again? Like we did for LLMs, like we did for cloud?
I mean, I think also can we ask because Google DeepMind moved over here recently, they started expanding their team a bit more. What do you feel is their hope for being placed here? It might not necessarily be deployment, it could be more towards the research base of stuff like that. Do you feel that it's because we have a significantly different research base that could contribute to tribal knowledge potentially to build things out? What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's definitely kind of tapping into different perspectives.
Right.
So yeah, we recently opened a research hub here on the Google campus, and hiring researchers in the region, and definitely the hope with that is if you're looking at kind of these models at the moment, they are incredibly biased, right? They are trained on pretty Western data, depending the models you're looking at, and so. With that, hopefully that is a benefit of having a research office here as well. The question is, I guess, with robotics as well, like in the region, it probably is still a lot cheaper to hire humans than to deploy robots. So the question is is the incentive here? Is it there to deploy, robots? Actually, what makes you do this here in Singapore?
Actually, that's true, because I think for context, the Menlo founders have been quite global. They have had a previous stint in SF as well, right?
Okay, I didn't want to answer this question.
Sorry.
Okay, so I think a bit of backstory. I think Menlo started by me and my wife, right? We were in Stanford, lived in all over the place, Berlin, all that. We're here because our kid goes to school here. My mom, my parents are old, right? And it's a difficult question, right? I'm asking, the customers are all in the US. The majority of our business is not here,
right?
And honestly, we went up to Shenzhen, right? The Shenzhen is giving us 3 years free rent, no questions asked, $3 million.
Yeah.
And I mean, Shenzhen's EDB has visited more than Singapore's EDB, So, and it's tough to justify, short of a lot of stuff. But I think maybe I'll answer it from the other way around, right?
Sure.
I mean, we've got to maybe move away from this idea of, sort of APAC and, that it's the nature of AI has changed, right? So a bit of background, we basically came out here, built this product, just kept running experiments. Then one thing grew, right? One small thing grew, got a few million users, and it's still just built by all of us over here, right? And in a post-COVID world, right, that Agora, all that has really built up, I think that's less of this idea of you are from one country, right? Our team is fully remote.
Yeah.
We've got people all over the world, and I just so happen to be sitting here, right?
Okay.
And I think if you think about robotics, right, and actually the Shenzhen, right, when we talk to Zhongqing, all that, robotics and back to the product returns, right? For our area of robotics, you have 7 degrees of freedom, right? A humanoid has 29 at least, minimum 29 degrees of freedom. The actuators don't last more than 3 weeks. Right? And that's the truth. Your RMA is, if it's 50%, it's very, very good, man. And most robotics needs to happen within a 10-kilometer radius because of supply chain, right? There is a very interesting chance, right, where you think about robotics not in terms of countries, but really in terms of 10 by 10 kilometers.
Okay.
Right? And if you look at Shenzhen, right, there's Long'an, there's Bao'an.
Yep.
And you can really see around the robotic centers, they're all in these things. And it's really a 10 by 10.
Yep.
And because we're really in our R&D phase.
Yep.
You need to be able to drive there,
For sure.
fix it, and bring it back.
Right.
Right. And I would say that for the R&D phase, sometimes in China it's so competitive you can't even break through to the market.
Right.
Is there actually an interesting idea, not around like APAC or whatever, but really just a 10 by 10 kilometer squared where there's 6 deployments and you're really focused on just solving problems for 6 customers and you're using that to develop your world models and everything?
Oh, interesting. Very different.
At least that's what I tell myself.
Interesting.
I'm not sure whether it works.
Colin, anything to wrap it up?
Yes, actually, I think we have the good opportunity, good resources in APAC because we have the massive population.
Yep, that's true.
That is the advantage for us, companies in APAC to make products. First of all, a lot of users will provide feedbacks to you.
Right.
And that is the first. And second one is we have the massive number of languages, and each language has its own dedicated accent.
Yep.
And that is a really super data set for us to train our robotic in this region and then go overseas to compete. I think that is a good opportunities from 2 perspectives, the population and the languages, and also the environment, the physical environment, the road, and also the network environment is quite different because there are some countries with poor network, but some countries are good. So one thing is your product need to be the last survivor in the competition.
Raise the
So
bottom.
this is the hardest war
True.
in APAC. So once you survive, then you can go overseas and compete with each others. So that is a big win for us.
So many different perspectives. Some people think that it might not be geographical, or some people think that the market is not very fantastic. But if you do survive, you'll make it. Yeah. Trial by fire. Yeah. Seems like a not super inspiring kind of future we have ahead of us, but very glad that we have folks like you guys trying to build it.
It is a tough space, so
Definitely.
every progress counts.
Yeah. So anybody want to stay tuned in the physical AI space? These are the gens to follow.
Yeah.
And with that, thank you so much.
Thank you, Colin. Thank you, Darren, Daryl, and Thor.